Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Shawn Mackey Show. He's so unpredictable. Mother Nature calls him for advice.
Okay, here we go. Recording, I believe, season 2, episode 6 right now. I posted episode 5. 5 was just me venting a little bit and then doing some play-by-play. I kind of told you that during this season, I'm going to do it for football, but I was doing baseball at this point. Very limited. I just pulled up the game on the Cubs website, had all the stats for that game in particular. You know, you could see the cartoon guys hitting, so you could see the pitches and I could make the calls and all that good stuff. But, wow, here we go. So it's been a minute since we talked about the Cubs. That play-by-play was during the Cubs game, but everybody keeps saying this team's built for October. I don't even know what the hell that means. If you got to get through, April through September before you can be built for October. I know the Cubs have a really good lineup. Some big-time struggles. Daniel Palencia blows another save, goes on the 15-day disabled list. I don't know if this guy's a legit closer anyway. His first year in the role, maybe he turns out to be one of those guys who leads the league 10 years from now, or leads the league 10 years from now in saves. I don't know. Right now, it's not really working. Now we got to see who's going to be closing out ball games for the next 2.5 weeks or so. Kyle Tucker hasn't played since September 2nd. Not on the disabled list, just trying to rest up that hand. Again, I talked about, I think, him, not going on the injured list back when he first found out about the hand to rest up back in June, I think has hurt this team. Now we don't know if Kyle Tucker's going to want to stick around in Chicago after this year. I know that his value has dropped tremendously. I think they were projecting him out to possibly be a 500 or 600 million kind of guy. Now they're down to 400 million. He's still a great ball player, but again, decisions you make as a player can hurt your team. And then when management knows about these things and then let the player control, that's where we're at, sitting there with Kyle Tucker. So Cubs lose 2 out of 3 to the Nationals. That's when Palencia gets hurt, blowing that save, giving up those 4 runs. Cubs lose the first game to Atlanta. Shota, now 9-8. And I know, and at one point, Matthew Boyd was, he's 12-8 now, I think. Great campaign, but I think at one point this dude was something like 10-2 or 10-3. I don't know. But Shota's given up a lot of long balls lately. League's kind of figuring this guy out, so we got to see if he can make some adjustments for the postseason, if the Cubs even make it. So just wanted to get in a little bit of that Cubs news to start this episode. We are now into the Tuesday, Friday, Sunday drops for these episodes. So we've got the NFL coverage coming up here to start with that terrible, terrible Bears game last night. And Sunday's episode that I posted, I didn't really do any college. Week 2, we all knew the top 25 was going to change drastically after week 1. I'm pretty sure it's flip-flopped again. So I think today's the day we'll see the new top 25 come out, see how it changed or fared from week 2 to going into week 3 for the NCAA college football action. So I want to get into this Bears game yesterday. I mean, I know it's game 1 under Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's doing the right things. He takes responsibility in the presser. He's a different breed as far as the last couple of 2 coaches, the 2 Matts prior to him, always making excuses. Ben Johnson's not making the excuses, and I hope he sticks by what he says, that he's not going to be patient. Because right now what I'm seeing with our quarterback is not looking good. And I'm going to tell you right now, I did not want the Bears to draft Caleb Williams. We saw these issues with Justin Fields. I didn't want them when they drafted Justin Fields, and I had learned that the Bears had traded up to get that, number 11. I kept telling my wife, we were somewhere, and I'm like, God, I hope they don't take Justin Fields. I hope they don't take Justin Fields. I hope they don't take Justin Fields. That me was personal because he's out of Ohio State, and I don't like Ohio State. And honestly, somebody should look this up, but who is the last Ohio State quarterback to succeed in the NFL? I gave you some time. I don't think you can name anybody, really. There's not been any. I think the last Ohio State quarterback that succeeded in the NFL succeeded as a punter, and that was Tom Tupa. But I don't recall any Ohio State quarterbacks starting many games for multiple seasons in the NFL. And I'm going to go back and look at that because if I'm wrong, I want to own up to that. But I know I looked this up a couple of years ago. So that's why I didn't want them to take Justin Fields. The whole Caleb Williams thing was, yeah, he was bright and flashy at college at USC, but I I didn't see anything in college that made me say this guy's going to be a great pro. And we don't see that a lot ever hardly anyway. You watch a lot of college football, you see quarterbacks half the time, there's some standouts, of course. There's the top 4 or 5 guys every year that the analysts are like, yeah, this guy's going to get drafted, he's going to go pro, he's going to be a great Sunday quarterback. Then you get the guys like the Tom Brady's, pretty decent kid at Michigan, doesn't get drafted very high, sits on the bench, comes in and gets his opportunity, and next thing you know, he's going to go down in history as one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game, at least in my time. Maybe by the time I'm long dead and gone, somebody else will have unseated Tom Brady as that top quarterback. But with the Bears yesterday, I'm telling you what, it looked almost a mere image of what we saw to end last season. The Bears, they could not stop the run. Minnesota seemed to run at will on this team. They couldn't get their run game going. I mean, the Bears rushed for, I think it was something like 119 yards, but Caleb Williams had 58 of that. And I said all that time when Justin Fields was leading the Bears in rushing yards every game, your quarterback cannot be the guy who leads the team in rushing yards. That is a recipe for disaster. That means you don't have a run game. That means your quarterback is scrambling his ass off, which then also means that your O-line's not getting the job done. And holy shit, I had so much I had so much hopes after bringing in these 3 new guys, Drew Dahlman and John Thuney and Jonah Jackson, to solidify that offensive line in the middle. Yes, Caleb only gets sacked 2 times for 12 yards. So that aspect's a little bit better. But they couldn't run the ball. DeAndre Swift ends up with 17 carries for 53 yards. That, for me, is on my list as one of the goods or the bright spot of that game. But we want to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the fucking horrendous with what happened on this team. I don't have a lot of good, other than Caleb Williams looked good in the first half, completed his first 10 passes. But here's the deal. A lot of those were those easy check down throws that he just kept completing, right? And then at some point, Brian Flores starts going to a cover 2, and he starts bringing DBs up on those check down receivers. And all of a sudden that puts, I think, Caleb in a little bit of a panic mode because he's like, fuck, my check downs are gone. So now he has to go downfield. And that's where we see some of the bad and the ugly, that Caleb Williams couldn't even hit wide open receivers. I mean, I know Troy Aikman was talking about it. He's like, you're a number 1 draft pick. You're supposed to be the generational quarterback that this team was hoping for. And you got to make those throws. Those are the throws you have to make. When you've got guys wide open, you can't be overthrowing them. You can't underthrow them. You got to make those throws. And he didn't. So the second half, Caleb Williams, I mean, he goes under my good for the first half, completing 10 of 10. Leading that first scoring drive. And everybody was so ecstatic. That first scoring drive, we're like, we finally drive down the field on the first possession. On our opening possession, we score. We put that to bed. All the troubles in the past years we had with the Bears were looking good in that first half. But then you have a botched 4th down. You're on the 24. You're on their 24-yard line, Minnesota's 24-yard line. It's 4th and 2. He misses a wide open wide receiver. Should have kicked the ball. At that point, kick the ball. Yes, Cairo Santos missed a 50-yarder a little bit later in the game, but I think he maybe makes that field goal. Maybe if he makes the one, and that was terrible. That kick, it looked like, I don't even know what it looked like, but he almost missed the first one he made. So you've got kicking issues. And again, those kicking issues will lead me into some of the ugly toward the end of this episode because of what happened at the end of the game. So, Nashawn Wright, the pick six, 74 yards for the touchdown. Dude played it perfectly. Here's a kid who was on Minnesota's practice squad, didn't play a lick at all last year. Comes in, he's starting for the Bears, probably because Kyler Gordon's out. But he's got that pick six. The Bears go up 17 to, was it 6 at that point, I think, because the Minnesota got that late field goal after giving up a 20-yard completion to get them into field goal range, and their kicker hits a 59-yard field goal. I think at half, it was like 10-6. And so early in the second half, maybe it goes up to 17-6. Everything's looking good at that point, and then the defense just freaking implodes. They couldn't get off the field. Too many 3-and-outs. Some of the bad was a lot of those Caleb Williams overthrows and underthrows, right? The no run game other than Caleb Williams. The 2 tight end set, everything that they said Ben Johnson loved. Like, he loved to run these, covered these 2 tight end sets. Well, your 2 tight ends, Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland, they combined for 3 receptions for 43 yards, and Kmet had 1 reception and picked up 31 of those yards. So Colston Loveland, 2 receptions for 12 yards. Was he targeted more? Were those some of the overthrows? Didn't really see that being that many. So I don't know what's going on with the 2 tight end set, right? The second half Bears defense, ticky-tack penalty on Tyreek Stevenson. But again, I'm not a big Stevenson fan after what he pulled last year. That ball was way overthrown, looked like the receiver slipped, and that's why there was contact. And then they call that. And then the 2 penalties on Odangbo. Oh, my God, I'm sorry. One, hands to the face. Looked like he had his hand in the dude's chest, and at the very last minute, it maybe grazed his chin, and they call him for that penalty. So that was terrible. And then what was the other penalty they called on him that I thought was a terrible. Oh, the roughing the passer. I mean, that ball, he was right there. He was in McCarthy's face, making contact with him as the ball was being released. So that's heat of the moment type thing. I didn't see his helmet touch his helmet. It looked like they were side to side, and he pushed him in the chest. I'd like to go check out video on that again, see if I can slow it down and see if there was helmet-to-helmet contact. I didn't think those 2 calls were warranted on Odangbo. Now, Odangbo was a guy early on that people were having questions about, but he had a freaking great game. He was all over the field. Really loved what Noah Sewell did, coming in playing for TJ Edwards with him being out. And that's the other part. The Bears had 3 players with soft tissue issues like hamstrings, Edwards and Gordon and Jalen Johnson, out. 3 starters on defense out. And I know I've seen a few post-game analysis going on, and you got guys like Patrick Manley and Owen Kreutz saying, like, that's a testament to the coach strength and conditioning team with those soft tissue issues. It's like they weren't prepared during the offseason to be healthy at the beginning of the season. Now let's get to the real ugly shit that went down in that game yesterday. 12 penalties for 127 yards. 4 or 5 false start penalties. Is that discipline on the offensive line, or does Caleb Williams maybe having a problem with keeping his cadence the same so that his guys know his rhythm? Because that's a big deal. If you're playing, I played offensive line for many years, and I know anytime one quarterback left the game and another quarterback came in, you usually get those false start penalties because you're trying to adapt to a brand new cadence. It's not the same. Each quarterback has his own way, the inflections in their voice, the things that they do and carry out, and how they go about that pre-snap cadence. So I've seen that before. So now we got to see, is that a Caleb Williams issue, or is that an offensive line issue? The poor clock management at the end of the game. Look, your kicker already misses a 50-yard field goal badly. Cairo Santos has been around the Bears for 6 years. Everybody knows this guy does not have a deep, 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 deep leg. He gets the job in camp because he hits that 57-yarder in the first preseason game. Jonathan Kim gets cut. He's got a deeper leg. Cairo Santos could not get the ball out of the back of the end zone. That Kevin O'Connell he sees that, and he sees his guy field that ball deep into the end zone, and there's only 2 minutes, 2 seconds left to go in the game. This cat runs that ball out of the end zone almost all the way up to the 30-yard line, and that just goes way past the 2-minute warning. You're talking about 15 seconds or more that come off the clock. At that point, the Bears do get the 3 and out, but they end up getting the ball back with only 9 seconds left to go in the game. Nothing to work with. And I think at this point, what's the difference? If you kick the ball out of the end zone, and I'm not sure with these new changes, I think it comes out to the 30 now. But if you kick the ball out of bounds, the clock doesn't start, and you only give up 5 extra yards. So the ball comes out to the 35, right? And then you get the 3 and out. You've got a lot more time on the clock with your one timeout. I don't know. So we see and this is not Ben Johnson's in his first game as a head coach. He wasn't a guy as an offensive coordinator that had to really worry about clock management and things of that nature. So that's kind of a little screw up. I have more faith Ben Johnson getting the job done for the Bears than I do Caleb Williams. And it's crazy to see when you scroll on the Facebook groups, the Bears pages that I like to follow. And again, we're seeing fans making excuses for Caleb Williams, just like they did for Justin Fields. And I think actually Justin Fields' first game with the Jets, I think his stat number, well, they're very similar, Fields and Caleb Williams. I didn't like Justin Fields. I didn't think he was going to be a mainstay at quarterback, but he also wasn't a first-round pick. He was the 11th pick in the first round. Caleb Williams was the number 1 pick. And you've got fans in these Facebook pages and groups saying, give him time. It's only year 2. And it doesn't matter. He's had a full year under his belt. Yes, he set some Bears passing franchise records or whatever, one for rookie quarterback or for quarterbacks in general. But the bar was set pretty low for him to do that. Hell, I think if Bajent would have played all season last year, he probably would have set those same records. So now you're in year 2. Yes, you've had maybe 3 or 4 offensive coordinators and different offensive schemes you have to run. But you're a number 1 pick. You are expected to pick that up and handle that. You are expected to fix the problems you had last year going into year 2. And how is it that a lot of these Bear fans are making excuses for Caleb Williams, and you witnessed a rookie quarterback? Yes, he's in his second year, but he sat out all last year because of that knee injury. And now you have J.J. McCarthy on the Vikings as a rookie quarterback. Game 1, overcomes the pick 6 he throws, settles himself down, and leads the Vikings to like 21 points unanswered in 1 quarter alone. So there's that. You have a guy taken in the same draft class as Caleb Williams, taken a lot later, playing a lot better. I've seen Bo Nix play better than Caleb Williams. Hell, I've seen Drake May play better than Caleb Williams. It seems to me like every quarterback taken in that draft after Caleb Williams, with the exception of a couple, is doing so much better. The Bears could have drafted so much better, but Ryan Poles wanted that number 1 overall pick. He had his mindset on Caleb Williams. I think there were some things that were overlooked, and I've said this before, and yet you gave him an extension. But I don't think Ryan Poles really knows what the fuck is going on. And that's another thing. If you go to the 670 Score on YouTube and watch their post-game analysis with Chuck Swirsky, and he had on Patrick Manley and Olin Kreutz, and I think one of those two guys, I believe it was Olin Kreutz, said the same thing. It's like at some point, you got to stop looking at the players and start looking at yourself because you brought those players in. Now, at the beginning of the preseason, there was talk about the Bears entertaining bringing in a couple of other running backs. And I was thinking, you know what? You got Rashawn Johnson, you got DeAndre Swift. With this better offensive line, I think we'd see a better running game. That's not the case. Is that the O-line? Is that DeAndre Swift? DeAndre Swift couldn't really break anything, couldn't get anything going. He had 3.1 yards carry for 53 yards, 17 carries. I'm more of a guy, you need a running back that when he gets to about the 17 or 18 carry mark for the game, this dude should be pushing the 100-yard mark at that point. You know, a good running game is going to get average those 4.1, 4.5 yards a carry. The Bears just didn't get that done yesterday with DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai in there. Roshan Johnson was out again, or not again, but he was another one that was out for that game. And then again, Brian Flores just making that adjustment. He's a defensive coordinator. He sees that Caleb Williams is taking the easy check down passes. So what does he do? He goes to that cover two. He brings the DBs up on the line at those check down guys. And right there, he knows that's going to mentally screw up Caleb Williams. It forces Caleb Williams to throw the ball downfield. And then we see all the overthrows and underthrows. And you know what? In game one, if you've got defensive coordinators able to figure out your tendencies and then they can just make one little change and disrupt your entire offense, you've really got some problems. So I'm still excited about the Ben Johnson. I hope he's true to his word. And in my opinion, with what we saw Caleb Williams do last year and the struggles he had, I say with the Detroit game, you as a coach, Ben Johnson, who came in, we all thinking you're our savior. At this point, if Caleb in the first quarter against Detroit runs your scripted plays and hits a lot of those checkdowns and doesn't, try to go downfield because he's afraid of throwing interceptions, if he has a good first quarter, that's great. But then as soon as you see Detroit make those adjustments and him start to struggle in the second quarter, I think you have to sit his ass down. Because I don't think, Ben Johnson, in your first year as head coach, you want to ride that bus all the way till the end of the season. Because if we continue to see Caleb Williams struggle the way he's struggling and you continue to ride that bus until the end of the season, you are going to probably go down in history as another bust coach. Another guy who is a pretty decent or a good offensive coordinator who takes over as a head coach and who can't get the job done. I'm not panicking yet. Don't take that this way. I never really dug the whole Caleb Williams pick. He was a bright spot last year on a team that was bad and the bar was set low. But don't forget, last year, the Bears started the season something like 4-2, and then they go on a 10-game losing streak. Yeah, a lot of that was Matt Eberflus, but how much of that was the guy running the offense? Right? There's a whole lot of things here that are going to have to change differently and change fast if Ben Johnson wants to be the guy that he wants to be as a head coach in the NFL. I don't know what's going to happen here. We just have to wait and see until next week. When they play Detroit, Detroit didn't look all that good against Green Bay game one. So a lot of people are saying, well, Detroit's not that good offensively. And so they're excited for Ben Johnson. And we all are. I still am. Like I said, I have more faith in Ben Johnson than I do in Caleb Williams right now. Because I think, and I don't want to say this, and I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but I think Ben Johnson is not running the offense he wants to be able to run because he sees what he has in the guy that's supposed to run that offense. I feel his hands are tied. Ryan Poles picked this kid number 1 overall. Had a lot of opportunities to stack draft picks. Hell, he could have traded that number 1 pick and picked a different quarterback who would probably be having or doing better. I just don't know if the mental toughness is there for Caleb Williams. I hope I'm wrong. I hope my analysis turns out to be absolutely incorrect. But it's funny, a lot of what I saw yesterday is a lot of what all the paid analysts and the talk show hosts and the writers are saying today. Not that I'm some kind of genius or guru. It's just the fact that I played and watched the game for over 40 years in my life. Well, I didn't play for over 40 years. I only played for about 30. See, I started when I was 22. I started when I was 8, and I officially retired from the semi-pro game when I was 30 years old. So I played for 22 years. I coached for 5 more seasons after that at the high school level, at the junior high level. I did a little coaching at the semi-pro level that last year that I was playing, in which I started out coaching that team and ended up getting pulled out of the coaching ranks to start at left tackle before I suffered an injury to my elbow. All while I was arm wrestling half liquored up in a bar. That ultimately ended the career because after the shoulder surgery and then the knee surgery, that elbow, it just was like, yeah. Actually, the elbow happened first. Then I had the shoulder surgery and the knee surgery. And the doctor said I could play again. But the wife said, no, you're not. No, 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 no. I was 30 years old at the time, finishing up my degree to become a teacher. Life in the future at that point was more important than me continuing to play the game. So there's that, right? I don't know what's going to happen with this season. We're going to have to just wait and see and see how it plays out. I hope the hell it gets turned around quick, because I'll tell you what, in the first half of that game yesterday, all was quiet on the home front here. Second half, my wife starts helping the daughter do some homework. And at that point, all of a sudden, I'm fucking yelling at the TV. I'm swearing and cussing up and down. Same old shit we saw last year. Nothing's fucking changed other than the head coach and all the new coaching staff. So I really hope it's not something that's going to lead me this season to be just kind of always cussing the TV and throwing shit and not wanting to watch the fucking Bears. Because that's the team I love. That's the team I root for. So I don't know what's going to happen. We're just going to have to wait and see. So that was the good, the bad, and ugly that I saw from yesterday's game 1, Monday night. Bears versus the Vikings. J.J. McCarthy leads the Vikings to a comeback victory in his first ever NFL game. And after the pick six, McCarthy looked like a poised pro ready to lead that team for the near future. Where on the other hand, our number one guy looked like the complete opposite in that second half, especially. Just looked like a deer in headlights. How the hell do you're scrambling, you're saying to yourself, I got to get rid of this ball, but then you end up stepping out of bounds before you get rid of the ball, and that goes down as a sack. That's one of the sacks that he takes. And then Caleb Williams gets the intentional grounding pass because he's trying to scramble. He stumbles. As he's going down, he starts to throw the ball. Yes, he was outside the pocket, but he couldn't muster enough on the ball to get it back to the line of scrimmage, and he takes the intentional grounding. And then you're scrambling, and you step out of bounds before you get that ball to the pylon. They ruled it a touchdown, but immediately, instantly after reviewing the play, you're out of bounds. You still get the touchdown. Dart to, was it Roma Dunze? So you still get that touchdown there, but you took a little bit of extra time off the clock because you had to run that next play. So that, again, kind of goes to poor mismanagement. And then the funny thing is, if you go on Facebook, there's a lot of fans are saying like, oh, the lines were crooked and the Bears, which it could be, I don't know, but doesn't matter. It don't matter if that line goes all the way downfield. If it's in here and you step here, you're in bounds. If it's out that way and you step here, you're out of bounds. It's the white line. You can't step on the white line no matter how crooked the fucking thing is. Even if it diagonal 4 yards into the field and came out this way. Well, anything in that point would be out of bounds. It's fucked up, the conspiracy theories and everything. So that's all the time I got for this episode. Peace. I'm out.